Every morning at 3 a.m., my neighbor screamed, "I see you," through the vents and banged on my walls. Cops brushed it off as mental health. Then I found my mail opened, my dog shaved, and a fridge note that said nice shampoo. So I built a trap so disturbing he'd never come back. At 3:08 a.m., the wall behind my head thudded hard enough to rattle the headboard. The bang traveled through the studs like a heartbeat with anger. Then his voice, thin and grinning, poured through the vent above my bed. "I see you," he sang, like a kid on a playground. The air tasted metallic like dust and someone else's breath. I stayed very still. My dog, Penny, didn't bark. She lay curled at my feet, ashamed and patchy where someone had shaved her down to the skin. That was last night. Or technically this morning. Tacoma doesn't sleep, not really, but our block on South 38th usually quiets by 2. I'd been counting the minutes, waiting for him to start. Waiting to see if the trap would work. It didn't start with the vent voice. It started with the soft stuff, footsteps in the hallway, my mail bent at the corners, the feeling of being watched when I grabbed packages from the lobby. Then the bangs. Then the 3 a.m. song. I called the police the first week it happened, twice in one night. They came once, knocked on his door, and came back shrugging. "Mental health situation," one of them said to me in the stairwell, palms up like it was weather. "Document everything, try to ignore it." The next night, the bangs got louder. The day my stomach turned for good was the day I came home to find my front door still locked, but my mail opened on the kitchen table. Every envelope slit, edges neat, like he enjoyed the letter opener work. Penny trotted out from my bedroom looking wrong. Her coat was hacked off in ugly squares, whiskers nicked. She shook and sat, eyes big like, "Did I do something bad?" I ran to the fridge for my leftover soup to warm it for her, comfort food for both of us, and found the note stuck with a magnet, printed block letters on a receipt. "Nice shampoo. I don't use that bathroom shampoo for guests. I use a lavender one that sits on my shower caddy, cap always crusted with a little purple." I gripped the bottle. It was wet. "I did what you do. I called," my voice shook. The dispatcher's voice was polite and tired. An officer drove by, looked at my door, took a photo of where the latch plate had fresh scratches, then told me there was no proof of forced entry. He explained, gently, about how people struggle and how apartment walls are thin. He recommended a wellness check on the neighbor. I signed a form. I went back inside and stood under the vent, listening to my own blood. No one would help me, so I helped myself. You learn things when you live alone and the world won't save you. You learn your building sounds like songs. The elevator's cables hum a note when it stops on 3. The boiler coughs at 2:40 a.m. The neighbor's boots drag, left foot heavier. He coughs before he starts to talk. I taped a cheap phone mic inside the bedroom vent with painter's tape and a bent coat hanger. I dusted my door handle with cocoa powder and cornstarch, because that's what a YouTube video said would reveal prints. I put a strip of scotch tape at the bottom of the door, the tiniest hair trapped in it, so I'd know if it moved. But a trap is more than bait and sensors. It has to be ugly. It has to tell a story he can't argue with later. So I cleaned my kitchen. I scrubbed the floor until the tiles squeaked. I placed my shampoo bottle, the lavender one, front and center in the fridge, next to the milk, cap loose. I set a neat stack of my opened mail like a still life in the middle of the table. And in the hall closet, I left something he wouldn't expect. Something I made with clothesline, a broken curtain rod, and a 5-gallon bucket. At 2:56 a.m., my phone recorded the boiler cough. At 2:57, the elevator hummed and stopped on 3. At 2:59, my doorknob whispered against the latch. Penny's ears lifted. I slid my palm over her ribs and waited while my heart kicked against my throat. The lock clicked like a throat clearing. The door eased inward slow, like a smile. He stepped inside, and the closet door began to open. When I first moved into that apartment on South 38th, I thought I'd finally done it, escaped. I'd left behind a messy breakup, a toxic job, and a lease that bled me dry. I didn't have much, just Penny, a couch that sagged in the middle, and this weird hope that a new zip code meant a new version of myself. The building was old, but it had charm. Exposed brick, big windows, cheap rent. The kind of place that makes you overlook the flickering hallway light and the smell of old water in the laundry room. The landlord, a guy named Jerry, handed me the keys and said, "Don't worry about the guy next door. He keeps to himself." I remember laughing and asking if that was supposed to be comforting. Jerry just shrugged and said, "You'll see." The first time I saw my neighbor, I was carrying in boxes. He appeared out of nowhere in the hall, mid-40s, buzzed hair, eyes that never quite blinked at the right time. His clothes were spotless, like he ironed even his t-shirts. He didn't smile, didn't say welcome, didn't even nod. He just said, "I watch things," and walked into his apartment, shutting the door like punctuation. That should have been enough of a red flag. But back then, I told myself everyone in this city was a little off. You make excuses when you need peace. For the first few months, it was fine. I worked late, came home, watched bad TV, fell asleep on the couch with Penny. Sometimes I'd hear him moving around next door, slow, methodical footsteps, but nothing weird. Then one night, around 3 a.m., there was this banging sound. Not just once. Repeated, hard, like someone slamming a fist against the wall behind my bed. I sat up, half asleep, heart racing. Penny barked once and hid behind the chair. I shouted, "Hey!" The banging stopped. The next morning, I tried to laugh it off. Maybe he fell, maybe he was drunk, but it kept happening. Same time, same rhythm, every night at 3 a.m. Then came the whispers. At first, I thought it was the pipes. Then I realized the voice was saying my name. Low and deliberate, through the vent that connected our apartments. "I see you." Sometimes he said it once, sometimes for minutes. Always calm. Always at 3 a.m. I called Jerry, the landlord. He promised to handle it. 2 days later, I heard Jerry in the hall yelling, "You can't scare people like that." And the neighbor's flat, emotionless voice answering, "I don't scare people. I see them." That night, the wall stayed quiet. I almost believed it was over. But then, just as I started to drift off, I heard 3 slow knocks, not on the wall, but on the inside of my bedroom vent. After that, I started sleeping in the living room. I bought white noise machines, wore earplugs, even slept with music on. But somehow, I always woke up at 3 o'clock exactly. Always to silence so deep it felt like he was waiting for me to hear it. It was around then that things started disappearing. Nothing huge, first a set of keys, then my scarf, then a bottle of lotion. Once I found my front door slightly open when I came home from work, just an inch, like someone forgot to close it. Penny started growling at the air near the vent. When I told the police, they told me to try to get video evidence. They said it could be paranoia triggered by stress. I wanted to believe that. I really did. Until the morning I woke up to find my kitchen light on, and my coffee mug moved from the sink to the fridge. Inside it was a single hair, mine, curled like punctuation at the bottom. That's when I realized he wasn't just watching me. He was inside. And the night after that, I decided I was done waiting for help. I was going to set the trap. The week after I found the hair in the mug, I stopped pretending to sleep. I'd lie on the couch with the lights off, Penny pressed against my hip, listening. Every sound became a threat, the radiator hiss, the hallway creak, even my own heartbeat. I barely ate, barely went to work. The second I stepped outside, I imagined him watching from his window. I started keeping notes. Every noise, every time the vents rattled, every strange smell. It gave me something to hold on to, a record that said, "I'm not crazy." I bought a second deadbolt and had a friend install it while I watched the hallway like a hawk. I put a cheap security camera in the kitchen, another pointing at the front door. But paranoia eats itself. One night around 2:30, I checked the footage from the night before and froze. The camera had gone black for exactly 7 minutes. No sound, no movement. Then it flicked back on like nothing happened. The timestamp was 3 o'clock a.m. That was the same night I heard his voice whisper, "I see you." The next morning, I cornered Jerry, the landlord, in the parking lot. I was shaking so bad I could barely get the words out. "He's coming into my apartment," I said. "He's watching me through the vents." Jerry didn't even look at me. He said something like, "He's had issues before, but he's harmless. Don't provoke him." Then he added, "He's been here longer than you." That's when I realized Jerry was scared of him too. I started leaving lights on, every single one. Slept with my phone on record, flashlight ready. It didn't matter. He found ways to remind me he could still get in. One day I came home and the TV remote was in the freezer. Another day, a small pile of my hair, cut clean from the back of my head, was in the sink. I couldn't even tell when it happened. And every night at 3 a.m. the banging, sometimes soft, sometimes violent, but always there. I started thinking about what he wanted. Attention, fear, power, or was it just sport? He never tried to talk, never asked for anything. Just those words, "I see you," and the slow, deliberate tapping on the walls. One afternoon, I came home early and heard a faint hum in the vent. I climbed up on a chair and pressed my ear to the grate. What I heard made my stomach twist: music. A children's song. "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," playing from a speaker somewhere inside his side of the vent. That's when I knew this wasn't random. He was performing, and the performance was for me. That night, I took Penny to my friend Caitlin's place. I told her it was for a few days while the apartment got fumigated. She didn't buy it, but she didn't ask questions. Once Penny was safe, I went back home alone. I turned off every light and sat at my table, just me, the hum of the fridge, and my phone camera pointed at the vent. I waited. Hours passed. Around 2:50, I heard movement. Slow. Careful, then nothing. At 3:01, the wall behind me flexed with a deep, dull thud. And then I heard it again. "I see you." But this time it wasn't through the vent. It was right behind the door. My phone was already recording. My pulse slammed in my ears. I stepped toward the door, every inch of my skin crawling. The handle twitched once, softly, like a finger brushing it. Then I heard him whisper, low and wrong, "You left your window unlocked." The next morning, I found muddy footprints in my bathtub. That was the day I stopped waiting for police. I started planning how to end it, once for all. The day after I found the footprints in my bathtub, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to trap him. I was going to expose him. If no one believed me, I'd make them believe. I spent that morning replaying every second of footage from my security cameras, looking for any movement, any flicker. Nothing. Just those same 7 minutes of blackout at 3 a.m. every single night. Then, as I scrubbed through one more time, I saw something. Just before the feed cut out, a reflection in the stainless steel handle of my fridge. It wasn't clear, but I swear I saw a face. Not mine. That was when I realized he wasn't doing this alone. I felt sick. I zoomed in, frame by frame. It was a woman, dark hair, sharp chin, wearing a hoodie. She wasn't supposed to be there. I'd never seen her before. And she wasn't the neighbor. I went down to the building office to talk to Jerry. He wasn't there, but the maintenance guy, Lou, was. I asked if anyone else had keys to my unit. He frowned, said, "Only me, Jerry, and maybe one or two of the old contractors." He paused. "Why?" I showed him the frame from the video. His face went pale. "That's Jerry's niece," he said quietly. "She used to live in 3B with him." I blinked. "With my neighbor?" Lou nodded. "Yeah, she was there a couple years, sweet girl. Then one day she just stopped coming around." He told us she moved out. I went back upstairs and stood outside my neighbor's door, staring at the faded number. If she was gone, where did she go? Why was she in my fridge reflection? That night, I didn't sleep at all. I pulled up building records, old rent listings, anything. Turns out, apartment 3B had been in the same name, his name, for 7 years. No record of anyone else on the lease, but old utility bills, 2 names, his and hers. It hit me all at once. She didn't move out, she disappeared. And Jerry, the landlord who kept brushing me off, had covered it up. My head was spinning. I started seeing everything differently, the weird stains on the hall carpet, the repairs Jerry never finished, the way he always said, "Don't provoke him." It wasn't fear, it was guilt. Because if this man had done something to that girl, Jerry had been helping hide it. That night, when the banging started again, I didn't flinch. I just whispered back through the vent, "I see you too." Silence. Then one soft laugh. Not his usual one, the laugh of someone else. Higher, wet-sounding, I froze. There were 2 voices now. I didn't sleep. I sat with my back to the door, a kitchen knife in my lap, and watched the minutes crawl past 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. When the sun came up, I packed Penny's things in one box and called Caitlin to keep her another week. Then I started working on the real trap. Not just something to scare him. Something that would make him confess, or run. Either way, I'd have proof. But as I worked, laying out the wire, adjusting the closet door, setting up hidden mics, I found something wedged behind the drywall panel near the vent. A piece of plastic, yellowed and cracked. It was an ID badge. Name, Melissa Hart. Photo, the same woman from the fridge reflection. Employer, Tacoma Community Bank. Status, deceased. I dropped it. My stomach went cold. If she was dead, then who had been whispering? And why was her badge inside my wall? By the time I found Melissa Hart's badge, I'd stopped thinking like a victim. Something in me snapped, clean and cold. Fear turned into calculation. I stopped crying. I stopped shaking. Every sound, every shadow, every detail became data. I started by documenting everything: photos of the badge, timestamps from my camera blackouts, audio from the vent. I even printed the nice shampoo note and sealed it in a plastic sleeve. I knew I couldn't count on cops, but if this went bad, I wanted proof for someone. Then came the trap. I went online, deep into forums I probably shouldn't have found, places where night shift janitors and DIY paranoids swap tricks for catching trespassers. I learned how to rig a motion-triggered flash to a disposable camera, how to wire a pressure plate from an old doorbell, how to disguise a mic inside a light fixture. Over the next 2 nights, I turned my apartment into a quiet maze. I lined the inside of my closet with monofilament line, thin as hair, invisible in the dark. A trip line ran from the closet door to a plastic bucket I'd filled with red paint, hair clippings, and a small plastic doll head from the thrift store. I wanted it to look like something sick, something he'd remember. The goal wasn't to hurt him. It was to make him believe he'd finally gone too far, to get him talking to the cops, to Jerry, to anyone, because if he panicked, he'd slip. But as I worked, I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched again. Every time I stood on the chair to tape another sensor, the back of my neck prickled. The vent was breathing warm air, faintly sweet like cologne. His cologne. That night I wrote a note of my own. "I see you too, come say hi." I slid it under his door at 2 a.m. At 2:37 I heard him moving. Slow steps. No voice, just pacing. The walls felt alive with it. By 3 o'clock my cameras were ready. My phone was recording. Penny was safe across town. I sat at the kitchen table with the lights off and waited. 2:56, the elevator hummed. 2:58, the hallway creaked. 3 o'clock, total silence. Then the doorknob turned. He stepped in, careful. I heard the faint click of his boots on the tile. The motion sensor blinked once. The flash popped bright, blinding. Then the sound, a wet crash, a startled grunt. The smell of paint and metal and panic filled the room. He'd tripped the line. The bucket hit him square in the chest. Red streaks everywhere, on his hands, on his shirt. He stumbled back, gasping, cursing. And then he laughed, not scared. Not angry. Just soft laughter, like someone reading a joke they already knew the ending to. He looked straight into the vent and said she'd love this. My stomach turned, because she could only mean one person, Melissa, and before I could even reach for my phone, the camera feed cut out again, 3 o'clock m sharp. When it came back, the door was open. The floor was clean, he was gone. The only thing left was a wet handprint on my fridge. I traced it with my finger, it wasn't his. It was smaller, feminine. And under it, written in the condensation, were 2 words. "Found you." That was when I realized my trap might have worked, but not on the man next door. Something else had come through instead. The next morning, I woke up on the kitchen floor with the taste of copper in my mouth. I didn't remember falling asleep. The phone was still recording, 6 hours of static. The trap was reset, the bucket washed, the paint gone. Everything was too clean. And on my kitchen table sat a new note. "You should have stayed quiet." No signature, no fingerprints, no nothing. I checked the cameras, they'd been wiped. Every file, every folder gone, even the backups I'd emailed to myself. I hadn't used any shared drives, no cloud accounts. Someone had gone into my laptop and deleted them manually. And that's when I noticed something worse. My Wi-Fi was connected to a new device. Melissa's iPhone. I felt the air leave my lungs. I hadn't said that name out loud to anyone. I called Caitlin. She told me Penny was fine, but I could tell I sounded manic. I told her I needed to come over just for a few hours. She said, "You can, but your landlord already came by. He said you were moving out early." Moving out. I hadn't told anyone that. By the time I got back to the apartment, Jerry's van was parked outside. He was standing by the stairwell, smoking. When he saw me, he smiled like I'd just confirmed a bet he'd won. "Didn't expect you to be here," he said. "Why are you telling people I'm moving out?" I asked. He exhaled smoke through his nose, slow. "Because it's safer if you do." "Safer from who?" He looked toward my neighbor's door. "You don't get it, do you? She's gone, but he still talks to her. She's all he's got. And you," he pointed at me, "you sound like her, you move like her, he's fixated." I took a step closer. "So you knew. You knew what he did." Jerry's eyes darted toward the hallway camera, then he said, quietly, "It wasn't him." My stomach dropped. What do you mean it wasn't him? Jerry looked pale, sweaty. Melissa, used to work for me. She was smart, too smart. She found out what I was doing with the rental accounts, how I was double charging, cooking the maintenance bills. She said she'd go to the cops. I stared at him. You killed her. He didn't deny it. Just said, I fixed it, but she won't leave him alone, won't leave us alone. Us. That's when the pieces finally slid into place. The noises, the vent voice, the timing. He'd been protecting himself, not his tenant. My neighbor wasn't the one watching me. He was just another puppet, another victim. And now I was one too. Because when I turned back toward my apartment door, it was already open. And my phone, my only proof, was gone. I bolted inside. The air smelled of lavender shampoo. On my couch sat the same doll head from the trap, clean now, with a small white sticker across its forehead. I peeled it off. Written in neat, looping letters were 4 words. Don't help him again. That's when the lights flickered once, twice. The vent hummed. And through it I heard a voice, not his, not Jerry's, but soft, calm, female. Do you see me now? And then the entire building went dark. When the lights went out, I didn't move. I just listened. The hum in the vent stopped. The silence stretched so long I could hear my pulse thudding in my ears. Then, faintly from somewhere below the floorboards, came the sound of scraping. Metal on concrete. I followed it. Down the hallway, past the elevator, toward the basement door, the one marked maintenance only. The padlock was gone. The air coming through the crack was cold and wet, like the smell of a flooded pipe. I pushed the door open. There were no lights, but I could make out shapes. Old paint cans, broken furniture, a half-collapsed water heater. And at the far end, 2 chairs facing each other. On one sat my neighbor. He was slumped, eyes open but empty, hands tied with plastic cord. His lips moved like he was trying to speak, but no sound came out. On the other chair sat Jerry. He turned slowly when he heard me. His face was gray and slick with sweat, his shirt half untucked, the cigarette trembling in his fingers. You shouldn't be down here, he said. What did you do to him? I whispered. He was supposed to be the scapegoat, Jerry said. The crazy neighbor. It worked for years. He kept everyone distracted. No one asked questions about the noise or the missing girl or the smell. He motioned toward the back wall. I followed his gaze, and that's when I saw it. A square of concrete had been patched over, the edges uneven, fresh enough that the gray hadn't faded yet. A spot just big enough for a person. Melissa. I stepped back, bile in my throat. You buried her here. Jerry didn't flinch. She wouldn't stop, even after she was gone. Phones turning on by themselves, doors opening, voices in the vents. It's her. It's always been her. You think I like this? His voice broke into a desperate rasp. She doesn't want to leave until I pay. He started laughing then, high, frantic. She picked you, you're her mirror. Same age, same build. You moved in right after the last one ran screaming. She needs a body to finish it. His eyes were wild now. You're the reason she's back. I shook my head. You're insane. But he didn't look insane, he looked terrified. She told me, he whispered, leaning forward. She said if I found someone who looked like her, someone to take her place, she'd stop. I thought it was him. He jerked his head toward the neighbor, trembling in the chair. I thought she wanted him. He smiled, empty and cold. But it's you. The scraping noise came again, louder now. The patched wall shuddered. Tiny flakes of concrete fell like dust. The room felt smaller, heavier, like the air was thickening around us. And then, behind Jerry, the vent grill popped loose. Something pale and thin slid out, fingers, coated in dust, long and jointed wrong. They brushed Jerry's shoulder. He froze. I ran. Up the stairs, through the hall, my breath tearing out of me. The lights flickered on and off in bursts. Behind me, I heard a scream that turned into a gargle. When I reached my apartment, I slammed the door, locked both bolts, and pressed my back against it. I could still hear the scraping from below. And through the vent, that same soft voice. Now he sees me. When the sun came up, the building was silent. I didn't go back downstairs, not for hours. When I finally did, both chairs were empty. And in the wet cement where the wall had been broken again, 2 sets of footprints led away, one large, one small. I left the building that morning with Penny under my arm and a single bag of clothes. I didn't look back. I drove until Tacoma was just a blur behind me. I found a cheap motel off the highway in Olympia, checked in under a fake name, and sat there staring at the wall, trying to make my hands stop shaking. But when the adrenaline wore off, the anger hit. I'd spent months begging for help, getting laughed off, dismissed, gaslit. And all along, Jerry had been standing on top of a corpse. He'd let a murderer's ghost rot in his basement, let that man next door take the blame, and watched me fall apart just to keep his secret buried. I wasn't done. 2 days later, I went back. Not into the apartment, but to finish what I started. I knew the cops wouldn't listen unless they had evidence that screamed, so I gave it to them. Before leaving, I'd hidden one of my small motion-triggered cameras inside the vent above my bed. I'd wired it to a portable power bank and sealed it with duct tape. Jerry hadn't found it. When I parked outside the building and connected my phone, the feed was still live. The basement door was open again. The camera showed movement. 2 men, Jerry, and a city inspector were down there. They were tearing up the concrete. When the second layer broke open, Jerry bent down. His mouth moved. The inspector stepped back fast, hand over his face. There it was, a body, or what was left of one. The cops came within the hour. I made the call myself, disguised my voice, and emailed them the footage. Then I left town again before they could start asking questions. A week later, the story hit the news. Landlord arrested in decade-old murder case. They found bones in the basement. DNA confirmed Melissa Hart. The police said an anonymous tip led them there. They said the building would be condemned. That night, I finally let myself breathe. I drove out to the coast, let Penny run on the sand, watched the sun bleed orange into the water. The wind carried the smell of salt and something clean. For the first time in months, I couldn't hear the hum of vents or the thud of fists on walls. But when I went back to the motel that night, there was a small envelope slid under the door. No return address. Inside was a photo, blurry, dark, taken from a low angle. It showed me sitting on the beach, smiling. On the back, written in looping, feminine script, "Now you see me, too." I didn't sleep. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Because she'd gotten what she wanted, justice. Jerry would rot. The neighbor would be free. And whatever Melissa was now, wherever she went next, it wasn't after me. I'd helped her finish it. And in a way, maybe she'd helped me too. When I finally packed up and left that motel, I stuck her ID badge in the glove compartment. A reminder that silence doesn't protect anyone. It just buries the truth a little deeper. And I've learned how to dig.